The massive chamber on Nexus Prime stretched out like a metal canyon filled with the strangest collection of beings the galaxy had ever brought together. Ambassador Kate Morrison sat in the human section, her hands folded on the polished table. As she watched the Zephyrian delegate wave his purple tentacles in what she had learned meant amusement, the sound that came from his breathing holes was like water gurgling down a drain, and it made her skin crawl every single time. 3 months they had been here. 3 long months of presenting trade proposals, defense agreements, and cultural exchange programs to creatures who looked at humans like children playing dress-up. Kate had kept her temper in check through insults that would have started wars between human nations, but today felt different. Today, the barely contained laughter from the alien delegates seemed louder than usual. Captain Ryan Phillips watched from the observer section, his military uniform crisp despite the recycled air that tasted like metal and ozone. He had seen combat in the Mars Rebellion and the Europa mining conflicts, but sitting in this chamber filled with beings who treated his entire species like amusing pets was harder than any battlefield he had faced. His hand rested near his communication device, ready to send the message that Admiral Lisa Carter was waiting for back on Earth. The Veltar representative stood up, his scaled hide shimmering under the artificial lights as he began to speak. His voice was like glass being scraped across stone, and every word felt like an insult wrapped in diplomatic language. The esteemed human delegation has once again presented proposals that show their species lacks the necessary experience for independent operations in galactic space, he said, his reptilian eyes fixed on Kate, with what might have been pity on a human face. Kate felt her jaw tighten but kept her expression neutral. Behind her, she could hear the soft breathing of her team, all of them as frustrated as she was but trained to never show it. Dr. Nathan Ward, their science advisor, had been taking notes on his tablet, but she could tell from the way his fingers gripped the stylus that he was close to snapping it in half. The Mordai delegate added their crystalline voice to the discussion, each word ringing like a bell made of diamond. Human emotional responses interfere with logical decision-making processes. This has been documented in 17 separate instances during these negotiations alone. The crystal being's form reflected the chamber lights in patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. "We propose," continued the Zephyrian ambassador, his tentacles now moving in slow circles that Kate had learned indicated supreme confidence, "that humanity be granted junior membership status in the Galactic Council. All decisions affecting more than a single star system would require oversight from established council members. This would ensure that human inexperience does not endanger established trade routes or diplomatic relationships." The chamber filled with sounds that passed for agreement among the various alien species. The ethereals in their environmental suits made a sound like wind through caves. The insectoid coralli clicked their mandibles in rhythm. Even the plant-like Verdani rustled their leaf-covered limbs in what Kate recognized as approval. Captain Phillips felt his communication device vibrate with an incoming message from Earth Command. He glanced down at the screen and saw the authorization code he had been waiting for. Admiral Carter had given him permission to send the signal that would activate Operation Rising Dawn if negotiations failed. He looked up at Kate, catching her eye for just a moment, and gave the slightest nod. Kate stood up slowly, her chair scraping against the metal floor with a sound that somehow managed to cut through all the alien chatter. The chamber began to quiet as delegates noticed her movement. She had learned that most alien species considered standing during negotiations to be either a sign of respect or submission, but humans had taught the galaxy that sometimes it meant something else entirely. "The United Earth Federation withdraws from these negotiations," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the vast space. "Effective immediately, humanity will chart its own course among the stars." The silence that followed lasted exactly 4 seconds before the chamber erupted into what various species considered laughter. The Zephyrian ambassador's tentacles quivered with mirth as he gurgled something to his companions. The Veltar representative's scales rippled in patterns that indicated amusement. Even the usually serious Mordai seemed to chime with crystalline laughter. "Let them try to survive without our guidance," the Zephyrian called out, his voice carrying over the noise. They will come crawling back within a standard year, begging for the very junior membership they now reject. Kate gathered her documents and walked toward the exit, her team falling in behind her. Dr. Ward moved past the ethereal delegation, who were making sounds like steam escaping from a broken pipe, which he had learned was their version of laughter. Engineer Amy Parker brushed past the Corrali section, where the insect-like beings were clicking their approval of the Zephyrians' prediction. The walk to the exit felt like it took hours, though Kate knew it was only minutes. Every step echoed in the chamber, mixing with the continued sounds of alien amusement. She could feel hundreds of eyes, sensors, and other sensory organs focused on her retreating form. The great and ancient species of the galaxy were watching the young humans storm out like children. Denied their favorite toy, Captain Phillips was the last to leave, pausing at the chamber doors to look back at the assembled delegates, the Zephyrian. Ambassador was still speaking, his tentacles waving dramatically as he addressed the other species. This is what happens when a species develops faster than light travel before they develop wisdom, he was saying. They believe they can survive in this galaxy alone, but they will learn otherwise soon enough. Phillips activated his communication device and sent a single coded message to Admiral Carter. Talks terminated. Authorize rising dawn. Then he turned and walked out of the chamber, letting the doors seal behind him with a soft hiss. In the corridor outside, Kate was briefing her team on the immediate steps they needed to take. All human personnel are to be evacuated from Nexus Prime within 6 hours, she said. We return to Earth immediately and begin Phase 1 of the withdrawal protocol. As they walked toward the docking bay where their transport waited, none of them looked back at the chamber where the galaxy's most powerful species were still laughing at what they saw as humanity's greatest diplomatic blunder. They had no way of knowing that in 6 months, that same chamber would host very different discussions, with very different power dynamics. The laughter from the chamber could still be heard, echoing down the corridors as the human delegation boarded their ship and prepared to leave Nexus Prime behind forever. 6 months had passed since the humans walked out of the Galactic Council chambers, and most of the galaxy had already forgotten about the dramatic exit. Trade continued flowing through the established hyperspace lanes. Territorial disputes were resolved through the usual diplomatic channels, and the great machine of interstellar civilization kept turning without any sign that humanity had ever been part of it. Commander Alex Thompson guided his small reconnaissance ship through the outer edges of human space, taking careful readings of everything he encountered. His orders from Earth Command were simple but strange: document any changes in human territory and report back immediately. What he found puzzled him more with each passing day. The human colonies were still there, still inhabited, still functioning, but something fundamental had changed. The usual chatter on galactic communication frequencies had gone completely silent from human worlds. Ships that once carried human goods to alien markets had simply stopped making their regular runs. Even the emergency beacons that all civilized worlds maintained had been switched off. It was not that human space had become empty or dead. Alex could detect massive industrial activity on several worlds, energy signatures that suggested major construction projects, and ship movements that followed patterns he did not recognize. But none of it was being broadcast on the standard channels that the rest of the galaxy monitored. The first alien species to notice something was wrong were the Corrali. Trade Minister Zixt H stood in his warehouse on the industrial world of Corrali Prime, staring at empty storage containers that should have been filled with grain from human agricultural worlds. His compound eyes reflected the harsh industrial lighting as he tried to understand what had happened to the most reliable suppliers in his trade network. Perhaps they are experiencing technical difficulties, suggested his aide, a younger Corrali whose mandibles clicked nervously as he spoke. But Zixt H had been in the trade business for over 200 standard years, and he had never known the humans to miss a delivery without sending advance notice. The humans had been almost obsessively punctual in their business dealings. When they said a shipment would arrive on a specific date, it arrived exactly on time. When they promised a certain quality of goods, that was exactly what was delivered. Other species joked that humans treated trade agreements like military operations, with precision that bordered on the ridiculous. Now, for the first time in 5 years, human cargo ships had failed to appear at their scheduled destinations. Zixth activated his communication system and tried to contact the human trading post on Kepler 442b. The signal went through the hyperspace relay network without any problem, but there was no response from the other end on Kepler 442b. Engineer Amy Parker was far too busy to respond to alien communication attempts. She stood on an observation platform high above the planet's surface, watching as massive orbital construction platforms moved into their final positions. The project she was overseeing was the largest single construction effort humanity had ever attempted, and it was nearly complete. The platforms themselves were huge, each one the size of a major city and packed with industrial equipment that had taken years to design and build. From a distance, they looked like the standard orbital manufacturing facilities that every major species used for large-scale production. But Amy knew that these platforms were something entirely different from anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Nathan Ward worked in a heavily secured laboratory buried deep beneath the planet's surface, running final calculations on equations that would have been impossible to solve just 5 years earlier. The breakthrough had come during humanity's first year of contact with alien civilizations, when human scientists realized just how far behind Earth was in conventional technology, while alien delegations had toured human facilities and made condescending comments about primitive human engineering. Human scientists had been taking apart every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on, not to copy it, but to understand the principles behind it and find ways to improve on designs that had remained unchanged for centuries. The aliens moved and thought in geological time, making incremental improvements to technologies that were already thousands of years old. Humans approached the same problems with fresh eyes and the desperate urgency of a species that knew it was centuries behind in a dangerous galaxy. Amy received a priority message on her secure communication system. Prepare for a Phase 2 implementation. Authorization code, Rising Dawn. She entered the authorization code into her control panel and watched as status lights across the orbital platforms began changing from yellow to green. The quantum slip drive had been theoretical when human scientists first proposed it 3 years earlier. The aliens had dismissed it as impossible when human researchers had presented preliminary findings at scientific conferences. The basic principles violated everything that established galactic science believed about. Faster than light travel, every species in the galaxy used variations of hyperspace technology, jumping between fixed points along predictable routes that had been mapped over millennia. Ships entered hyperspace at specific coordinates, traveled along established lanes, and emerged at predetermined exit points. The system worked perfectly, but it was also completely predictable. Human scientists had taken a different approach entirely. Instead of trying to improve hyperspace technology, they had focused on finding ways to bypass it completely. The quantum slip drive did not use hyperspace lanes at all. Instead, it created temporary tiers in normal spacetime that allowed ships to appear instantly at any location within range. The implications were staggering. While alien fleets had to follow known hyperspace routes and could only travel between established jump points, human ships equipped with quantum slip drives could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. No predictable travel times, no fixed routes, no way for enemies to anticipate where they would emerge. Amy watched as the first test vehicles began powering up their quantum slip drives. The energy readings were unlike anything in the galactic databases, creating signatures that would not match any known technology if alien sensors happened to detect them. To outside observers, the drives would appear to be completely alien technology from some unknown species. The test vehicles disappeared from normal space without any of the characteristic energy flashes that marked hyperspace jumps. One moment, they were visible on the sensors, and the next moment they were gone, leaving only empty space where they had been. Minutes later, they reappeared in orbit around distant test targets, having crossed hundreds of light years in the time it took to blink. Dr. Ward received confirmation that all tests had succeeded beyond expectations. The quantum slip drive was not only functional, it was more efficient than the theoretical models had predicted. Human ships could now travel anywhere in the galaxy instantly, while the rest of galactic civilization remained locked into their ancient hyperspace network on Earth. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the war room beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching as reports came in from construction sites across human space. The withdrawal from galactic politics had given humanity exactly what it needed: time to work without alien observation, and motivation to push beyond every limit that others had tried to impose on them. The aliens thought humanity had retreated in defeat, nursing wounded pride in some corner of the galaxy where they could safely sulk about their diplomatic failure. They had no idea that human engineers and scientists had spent every day of the past 6 months preparing to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The distress call reached the Galactic Council Fleet headquarters at exactly 0347 Standard Galactic Time. Captain Velson of the merchant vessel Star Prophet was transmitting on all emergency frequencies, his voice strained with panic as he tried to describe what had just happened to his cargo convoy. Unknown vessels appeared from nowhere, he reported, his words coming so fast that the translation computers struggled to keep up. They were not using any FTL signatures I have ever seen. My sensors could not track their approach, and their drive systems do not match anything in our databases. Admiral Vexanus received the report in his command center aboard the massive battleship Eternal Vigilance. The Zephyrian military commander had served in the Council Fleet for over 3 centuries, and he had never heard a ship captain sound so completely confused by an encounter with hostile forces. His tentacles writhed with concern as he studied the sensor data that accompanied the distress call. The attacking ships had appeared without any of the energy signatures that marked normal hyperspace emergence. They had disabled the entire convoy using some kind of electromagnetic pulse weapon that left the ships powerless but undamaged. Most strangely, they had not taken any cargo or harmed any crew members. They had simply appeared, demonstrated their superior technology, and then vanished again without explanation. 3 more convoys reported similar attacks over the next week. Each time, the mysterious attackers used the same pattern: appear without warning, disable all ships with precise electromagnetic strikes, then disappear again without taking anything or causing permanent damage. The attacks seemed designed to demonstrate capability rather than achieve any practical military objective on Earth. President Helen Baker stood in the secure briefing room beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching tactical displays that showed the true scope of Operation Rising Dawn. The holographic projections revealed human task forces positioned throughout the galaxy, each one equipped with the quantum slip drive technology that had remained hidden from alien observation for the past 6 months. Fleet. Admiral Lisa Carter provided the briefing to the assembled leaders of the United Earth Federation. Her crisp military uniform contrasted sharply with the casual clothing worn by the civilian officials, but everyone in the room understood that they were witnessing the beginning of a new era in galactic politics. Our quantum slip drive technology has exceeded all projected capabilities, she reported, gesturing toward the tactical displays. We can now deploy our forces to any location in the galaxy without using hyperspace lanes or following predictable travel routes. While alien civilizations remain dependent on fixed jump points and established corridors, we have achieved complete freedom of movement. President Baker studied the holographic display showing human ships positioned near major alien trade routes, military installations, and population centers. The positioning had been planned with mathematical precision, ensuring that humanity could strike at any target in the galaxy within minutes if necessary. And they still believe these attacks are being carried out by unknown alien forces? She asked. Correct, Madam President, Admiral Carter replied. Our ships incorporate design elements reverse, engineered from alien technology, but significantly improved through human innovation. The aliens cannot recognize our vessels because they cannot conceive that any species could advance so rapidly in such a short time. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Rodriguez stepped forward to provide his psychological warfare analysis. His team had spent months studying alien thinking patterns and cultural assumptions, identifying weaknesses that could be exploited without firing a single shot. The alien mindset is our greatest strategic advantage, he explained. They think and plan in terms of centuries or millennia. The idea that a species could revolutionize their entire technological foundation in just 6 months is completely outside their frame of reference. They literally cannot imagine that humans could be responsible for these attacks. Meanwhile, at the emergency session of the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime, panic was beginning to set in among the assembled delegates. The mysterious attackers had now disabled 17 major trade convoys and forced the evacuation of several outer rim mining operations. The economic impact was already being felt across multiple star systems, the Zephyrian military commander addressed the assembly with growing frustration. We have deployed our fastest patrol fleets to the affected areas, but these unknown vessels continue to evade all attempts at detection or pursuit. Their technology appears to be superior to our own in every measurable category. The Veltar defense minister added his own concerns to the discussion. Most disturbing is their apparent knowledge of our shipping schedules and patrol routes. They strike with precision that suggests detailed intelligence about our operations. This indicates either a major security breach or surveillance capabilities we have not detected. The ethereal delegate made sounds like wind through broken glass as it expressed its own theory. Perhaps we should consider the possibility that these attacks are not random piracy or territorial expansion. The pattern suggests a coordinated campaign designed to disrupt galactic commerce and demonstrate technological superiority. It was the Mordai representative who first voiced what several other delegates were beginning to suspect. The crystalline being's voice rang with harmonic frequencies that conveyed deep unease. What if these unknown attackers are not unknown at all? What if they are a species we have previously encountered, but one that has developed capabilities beyond our recognition? The suggestion sent ripples of concern through the assembly. Several delegates began reviewing data on species that had recently withdrawn from galactic politics or gone silent on communication channels. The list was short, but one name appeared more frequently than others in the analysis. Captain Jake Sullivan piloted his stealth reconnaissance vessel through the outer edges of Veltar space, carefully monitoring the alien patrol patterns that had become increasingly desperate over the past week. His orders were to observe and document alien responses to the mysterious attacks, but what he discovered exceeded all expectations. The Veltar had repositioned their entire home fleet to defensive positions around their most important worlds. Trade routes that had been used for centuries were now heavily patrolled by nervous alien crews who jumped at every sensor anomaly. The psychological impact of the attacks was far greater than the actual military damage caused. Sullivan activated his quantum slip drive and appeared instantly in orbit around a distant Corelli industrial world, where he observed similar defensive measures. The insectoid species had pulled their merchant fleets back to protected space and were conducting constant sensor sweeps for threats that they could not detect or understand. The beauty of the human strategy was its elegant simplicity. By using technology that aliens could not recognize or comprehend, humanity had achieved something that conventional military force could never accomplish. They had made the entire galaxy afraid of shadows, jumping at threats that might appear anywhere at any time. Dr. Patricia Young broadcast a message from her laboratory on Earth, transmitted simultaneously to every major world in the galaxy. Her words were carefully chosen to sound like a scientific observation rather than a threat or boast. Recent events in galactic space demonstrate the dangers of technological stagnation, she said, her image appearing on communication screens across thousands of worlds. When civilizations become comfortable with existing capabilities and cease to innovate, they become vulnerable to species that continue to push the boundaries of possibility. The message was received with growing alarm by alien scientists who suddenly realized that their assumptions about technological development might be completely wrong. The galaxy held its collective breath as the implications of recent events began to sink in, and a terrible suspicion started to form about the identity of the mysterious attackers. The truth came out when Commander Jake Sullivan's stealth reconnaissance ship captured clear sensor data of a human vessel emerging from quantum slip near a Veltar patrol fleet. The alien commander had barely 3 seconds to register the impossible. Readings on his sensors before his entire squadron was disabled by precision electromagnetic pulses that left their ships floating helplessly in space. Sullivan transmitted the encounter data directly to Galactic Council headquarters, where Admiral Vixanis studied the readings with growing disbelief. The energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases, but the ship design incorporated elements that looked familiar yet impossibly advanced. Most shocking of all, the brief communication burst intercepted during the attack contained fragments of human language within 6 hours. The revelation rippled across every major communication network in the galaxy. The mysterious attackers were not unknown aliens from some distant region of space. They were humans, using technology that made the galaxy's most advanced warships look like children's toys. Emergency sessions convened simultaneously on 15 major worlds as the implications became clear. In 6 months of silence, humanity had not only achieved technological parity with established galactic powers, but had surpassed them completely. The species that had been dismissed as inexperienced newcomers now possessed capabilities that violated every known law of physics. Captain Maria Santos commanded the human task force that appeared in orbit around the Zephyrian homeworld. Her ship, the Freedom's Edge, materialized without warning directly above the planet's capital city, followed by 12 other vessels that emerged from quantum slip drives at precisely calculated intervals. The Zephyrian home defense fleet scrambled to respond, but their ships were still accelerating toward intercept positions when Maria opened a communication channel to the planet's surface. Her message was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every Zephyrian on the planet could hear her words. "This is Captain Maria Santos of the Earth Federation Navy," she said, her voice calm and professional despite the enormous significance of the moment. "We are here to discuss new terms for galactic relations. You may contact Ambassador Kate Morrison on Earth to arrange immediate negotiations." The same scene played out simultaneously across 15 major alien homeworlds. Human fleets using impossible technology appeared in orbit around the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, delivering identical messages that fundamentally changed the balance of power in known space. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council chamber that had once witnessed humanity's humiliating exit now hosted frantic emergency debates. The Veltar representative who had previously demanded human supervision now cowered behind his delegation's protective barrier as reports flooded in of human technological capabilities that made no sense according to established science. "How is this possible?" whispered the ethereal delegate, its gaseous form rippling with distress inside its environmental suit. "How did they advance from primitive FTL technology to capabilities beyond our understanding in such a short time?" The Zephyrian ambassador's tentacles writhed with barely controlled panic as he tried to contact his homeworld's defense forces. The reports coming back were all the same. Human ships had appeared without warning, demonstrated overwhelming technological superiority, then simply waited in orbit like patient predators. Dr. Patricia Young's second broadcast reached every major world in the galaxy simultaneously, transmitted from locations that should have been impossible to reach without using hyperspace lanes. Her laboratory appeared to be floating in the void between star systems, somehow maintaining perfect environmental conditions in the vacuum of space. "While you spent centuries perfecting technologies you already possessed, we spent 5 years learning everything you could not teach us," she said, her image crystal clear despite the impossible location of the transmission. "Human adaptability is not a weakness to be overcome through supervision. It is our greatest strength and the foundation of our survival in this galaxy." The broadcast included technical specifications that made alien scientists question everything they thought they knew about physics. The quantum slip drive operated on principles that contradicted fundamental laws of space-time manipulation. According to every textbook in galactic science, the technology should not work. Yet human ships were demonstrating its effectiveness across dozens of star systems. Simultaneously, Lieutenant Colonel Ben Rodriguez monitored alien communication networks from his command center on Earth, watching as panic spread through established galactic civilization like a virus. His psychological warfare analysis had predicted this exact response. When confronted with evidence that their technological superiority was an illusion, the alien species would experience a crisis of confidence that would make them vulnerable to negotiation. Phase 3 is proceeding exactly as projected, he reported to Admiral Carter. Alien military forces are pulling back to defensive positions around their homeworlds. Trade networks are shutting down as cargo ships refuse to leave protected space. The psychological impact is exceeding our most optimistic estimates. On the Corelli homeworld, Trade Minister Zixt H. stood in his empty warehouses, finally understanding why human cargo ships had stopped arriving months earlier. The species he had dismissed as unreliable newcomers had been preparing for this moment, withdrawing from galactic commerce not in defeat but as part of a carefully planned strategy. His communication system activated with an incoming message from Captain Tony Mitchell aboard the human vessel New Horizon. The transmission quality was perfect despite originating from a ship that sensors could not detect or track. Minister Zixith, the human officer said, the Earth Federation is prepared to resume trade relations under new terms that reflect current realities. We believe you will find our revised proposals more equitable than previous arrangements. The same message was being delivered to trade officials across the galaxy, offering partnerships instead of the subordinate relationships that aliens had previously demanded. Human negotiators were no longer asking for permission to participate in galactic commerce. They were offering opportunities for alien species to maintain access to human goods and technology. Admiral Vexon S. received a personal communication from Admiral Lisa Carter, transmitted directly to his flagship despite all security measures that should have prevented unauthorized access to military communication networks. The human admiral's message was brief and impossible to ignore. Admiral Vexana's, the Earth Federation requests immediate discussions regarding new security arrangements for galactic space. We are prepared to demonstrate additional capabilities, if current ones are insufficient to establish our credibility as negotiation partners. The demonstration that followed involved human ships appearing simultaneously in the defensive perimeters of every major alien military installation in the galaxy. They remained visible for exactly 60 seconds, long enough for alien sensors to confirm their presence and record their impossible energy signatures, then vanished again without explanation. The message was clear: humanity could appear anywhere in the galaxy at will, and no defensive measures could prevent them from doing so. The species that had once begged for junior membership in the Galactic Council now held the ultimate strategic advantage over every established civilization. President Helen Baker received reports from human task force commanders across the galaxy, confirming that Phase 3 had achieved complete success. Alien governments were requesting immediate communication with Earth, offering concessions that would have been unthinkable just days earlier. The galaxy that had once laughed at human diplomatic inexperience was now desperately trying to understand how to negotiate with a species that had fundamentally changed the rules of interstellar politics. The hunt for answers had revealed a truth that shook the foundations of galactic civilization. The humans had never been the primitive newcomers everyone believed them to be. The second round of negotiations took place aboard the massive Earth Federation station New Geneva, positioned in the neutral zone between the major galactic powers. The station itself was a testament to human engineering capabilities, constructed entirely during the 6 months of silence using materials that alien scientists could not identify. Ambassador Kate Morrison sat at the head of a conference table that could have accommodated 50 delegates, but today held only the most senior. representatives from each major alien civilization. The power dynamic had shifted so completely that many species had sent their highest-ranking officials personally rather than risk offending humanity with lower-level diplomats. Admiral Lisa Carter stood behind Kate, no longer relegated to the observer section but serving as an active participant in discussions that would reshape the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. Her presence sent a clear message: the military capabilities that had shocked the galaxy into submission were now part of the diplomatic equation. The United Earth Federation proposes a new galactic charter. Kate began, her voice steady and confident as she addressed delegates who had once dismissed her as an inexperienced amateur. This charter will establish relationships based on mutual respect rather than assumed superiority based on species age or previous technological achievements. The terms she outlined were revolutionary by galactic standards. Open technology sharing between all member species, with no restrictions based on perceived development levels. Equal representation in all council decisions regardless of how long a species had possessed faster-than-light travel. An end to the patronizing oversight systems that had kept younger civilizations in subordinate positions for millennia. Commander Tony Mitchell, now serving as humanity's military attaché, watched the alien delegates struggle with concepts that challenged everything they believed about galactic hierarchy. The Zephyrian ambassador's tentacles had remained almost motionless since the negotiations began, a sign of deep stress among his species. Some delegates embraced the proposed changes immediately. The Coralli had always resented the condescending treatment they received from older galactic powers, and Trade Minister Zixt H was among the first to express support for the new charter. His compound eyes reflected genuine excitement as he spoke about equal partnership opportunities. The Coralli Federation endorses these proposals completely, he declared, his mandibles clicking with enthusiasm. We have long believed that wisdom is not measured solely by the number of centuries a species has possessed space travel, but by their willingness to adapt and grow. The plant-like Verdani delegate rustled their leaf-covered limbs in agreement, communicating through chemical signals that their translation computers converted to supportive statements. Even some of the more traditional species began to see advantages in the proposed system, particularly those that had been marginalized by the established power structure. The Zephyrian and Veltar representatives found the changes much harder to accept. For centuries, they had been among the dominant voices in galactic politics, their opinions carrying weight simply because their civilizations were ancient. The new charter would strip away those automatic advantages and force them to compete on equal terms with younger species. President Helen Baker arrived for the final day of negotiations aboard her flagship Constitution, accompanied by Dr. Rebecca Foster, who had led the quantum slip drive development program. Their arrival demonstrated that humanity was negotiating from a position of absolute strength, with their most advanced technology and highest leadership committed to the process. The Constitution itself was a marvel that alien observers struggled to comprehend. The ship had appeared in the neutral zone without using any detectable propulsion system, suggesting capabilities even beyond the quantum slip drive technology that had already revolutionized galactic warfare. Its hull incorporated materials that reflected sensor beams and patterns that created optical illusions, making it appear larger and more threatening than its actual dimensions. President Baker addressed the assembled delegates with words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. We offer partnership to all species willing to embrace change and growth, she said, her voice carrying clearly through translation systems that had been upgraded with human technological improvements. Humanity has learned much during our time away from these halls. We have learned that progress comes not from maintaining established systems simply because they have existed for millennia, but from embracing innovation and adaptation. We have learned that wisdom is not automatically granted by age, but must be earned through the willingness to question assumptions and explore new possibilities. Dr. Foster provided technical demonstrations that left alien scientists speechless. The quantum slip drive was only the beginning of human technological advancement. During their months of isolation, Human researchers had developed improvements to hyperspace technology, energy generation systems, and communication networks that surpassed anything the galaxy had previously imagined. These technologies will be shared freely with all charter signatories, she announced, displaying holographic projections of technical specifications that would revolutionize galactic civilization. Humanity believes that advancement benefits everyone when knowledge is shared rather than hoarded. The final vote was conducted using a new electronic system that allowed instantaneous communication with homeworlds across the galaxy. One by one, the major species announced their positions on the proposed charter. The Coralli voted in favor immediately, followed by the Verdani and several smaller civilizations that saw opportunity in the new arrangements. The Mordai spent several minutes in harmonic consultation before their crystalline representative announced support for the charter, with the caveat that certain traditional protocols would be maintained for ceremonial purposes. Even the ethereals, after considerable internal debate conducted through chemical signals, agreed to the new framework. The most dramatic moment came when the Zephyrian ambassador finally spoke, his tentacles moving in patterns that indicated resignation mixed with grudging respect. "The Zephyrian Confederacy accepts the proposed charter," he said, his gurgling voice carrying undertones of defeat. "We acknowledge that our previous assumptions about galactic hierarchy were based on outdated concepts." The Veltar representative was the last to vote, his scaled hide reflecting the chamber lights as he considered the implications of his decision. "The Veltar Empire votes in favor of the charter," he finally announced, "with the understanding that all species will be held to the same standards of conduct and responsibility." Captain Ryan Phillips, now promoted to admiral, stood on the observation deck of New Geneva watching the alien fleets depart to spread news of the new charter across their respective territories. Each ship would carry back word that the galactic order had changed permanently, and that humanity was no longer asking for permission to exist among the stars. The signing ceremony took place in the same chamber where the negotiations had concluded. Kate Morrison affixed her signature to the document using a pen made from materials found on Earth, while representatives from 43 different species added their own forms of authorization, using methods ranging from tentacle impressions to harmonic frequency recordings. As the ceremony concluded, Ambassador Kate Morrison reflected on the journey that had brought humanity from humiliation to leadership in less than a year. The species that had walked out of the previous negotiations in apparent defeat had returned as the architects of a new galactic order. The galaxy had held its breath during humanity's absence, waiting to see what the angry young species would do next. When humanity returned, they brought with them not conquest or revenge, but a vision of cooperation that would benefit every species willing to embrace it. The talks had resumed, but this time everyone listened when humans spoke.